Today we're going to paint some space walls. First off, we started off with a white undercoat because it's going to be a light base colour. Next we're applying Fenrisian grey. Here you can see I'm using a weathering powder where I've added water to the weathering powder so it will flow. I've got two different colours which are a rust type colour. I've chosen to use the darker of the two. The reason for this is the miniature itself was very light in the first place, so where we can we want to try and darken the miniature down some to give a bit of contrast between light and dark colours. I'm now using a cotton bud to rub off the excess of the weathering powder, and this helps to spread out that weathering powder so it gives different grades of how rusty it is in areas. And remember, you need to use water with the weathering powder to do this. If you apply Armour medium to the weathering powder, it will actually turn it into a solid paint, so then this won't work. For the inner armour, I started off first with Mechanica standard grey, and then after that paint has had time to dry, we then applied null oil. Lead belcher was applied to the silver areas on the weapon and a few areas on the backpack, and then after that paint has had time to dry, we then applied null oil. For areas like tabards, gun holsters, pouches, first I started with corn red. Secondly, bugman glow was added to pick out some of the edges, and thirdly, Caroboberg crimson was applied as a wash. I've used these colours as, although I wanted a red colour to it, I wanted again to try and keep it dark so it helps to give a contrast with the brightness of the main armour. For the weapons again, I'm trying to keep them dark, so I started off with Abaddon black. Then I've used Mechanica standard grey to pick out the uppermost areas of edges. And lastly, a little bit of white scar and a few areas just to pick out reflections. For these red areas, I would suggest first applying Ubshabti bone, and once the paint's dry, then apply bloodletter glaze over the top, and it should give it a nice bit of a glow. For the green on the centre of the backpack and also for the scope of the weapon, for the green on the centre on the backpack and the scope on the weapon, Warpstone glow was applied first, then moot green was used on the bottom of the area to give a slight highlight, and Corellia green shade was applied onto the top to add a little bit of extra detail. Where with the red buttons, I had to apply a different colour for the base colour first. With the green ones, I didn't have to, I just applied a wash straight over the Fenrisian grey. For the gold areas, Jennena's gold was used first, then Auric armour was used second. Afterwards, a wash of Agrak's Earthshade was applied, and the reason why I've applied the darkest colour last is, again, I'm trying to darken some of the colours down to help with that contrast between the dark colours and the very light colour of the armour. Lastly, the lenses and buttons and scopes had a gloss varnish applied to them to give a nice reflective surface to finish off the miniature. If you like the video, remember to like, share, and click on the button on the lower right hand side to subscribe.